Evening, good afternoon to everybody, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining us for this session of the small-scale PPP program that we started and that now we have, as most of you know, been joined by UNECE. So now it is the UNECE WAP small-scale PPP program. We are delighted to have you. First session, we discussed what are small-scale PPPs. We arrived at a definition. We then talked about what are the hurdles that are facing small-scale PPPs. Then we looked at some of the potential solutions that people have thought about. Then we looked at some issues regarding the legal environment. And today we are starting our first of 3 sessions that are going to be dedicated to case studies. So we are going to move from the theoretical to the practical and see with people on the ground who have really actually worked on small-scale PPP programs and projects, what are the issues they faced, what are the solutions they came up with, what are the lessons they have learned, and hopefully this will be of great use to everybody in the PPP community worldwide. So thank you very much for joining us again. And we have with us Natasha Schmidt. Natasha is co-chair of our Latin American chapter at WAP. She is also a very active PPP professional, both with WAP, with UNECE, with several other organizations, and she has a podcast of her own. I will let her introduce herself, say a few words about herself, then she will introduce the speakers. We will go through the presentations, and at the end, we will have a possibility for question and answers. Thank you again. Natasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ziad, for the introduction and warm welcome. Hello, all of you. I'm Natasha Schmidt. I'm a lawyer in the infrastructure sector, and I work with PPPs for a long time, for 13 years. And I also have a podcast, as Ziad said, the name is Sustan Talks, and I invite you all to know more about it. But it's a privilege to navigate in today's session with you. A special welcome to our panelists, to all participants joining us digitally. And in today's sessions, we're pivoting to examine practical applications with small-scale PPPs, as we are set to delve into case studies, which will provide us with multifaceted understanding of small-scale in action. We're privileged to host a panel of seasoned experts who will present the case studies and later engage in comprehensive discussion, offering their unique perspectives and insights. I encourage everyone to actively participate, as your questions and reflections will enrich our collective learning experience. Also, feel free to utilize the chat function to engage with fellow participants and exchange thoughts. So let's start with our first case study presentation. I ask Samantha to join us here. She's already here. And Samantha is from Caixa Econômica Federal. Caixa Econômica Federal is the largest public bank in Brazil, and Caixa Econômica Federal is in many modeling and designing PPPs, mainly for the small-scale PPPs, and it will be an honor to listen to Samantha. Welcome, Samantha.
Thank you, Natasha. Thanks for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen, and I ask you to let me know if it works.
Do you mind, Samantha, to make a very briefly presentation of yourself?
Yes, sure. So I work in Caixa for a few years, and I work with PPPs since 2019. And we have here in my team, we have a lot of people certificated in APMG certification of PPP, as myself, that I'm certificated in 3 levels. And I have an MBA in PPP as well. And I have been working with project finance before the PPPs. So I'll start my presentation now. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about Caixa's expertise of PPP structure in Brazil. So for starting, I would like to talk about our institutional profile. So just to get to an understanding of what is Caixa. So Caixa was founded in 1861. It's a 100% government-owned financial institution, and it's the fourth largest bank in Latin America. We have more than 80,000 employees. So that's just to show you how big we are, and that we are we play a very big role in the public side here in Brazil. So about our concessions, we have a fund that it's a PPP project structuring support fund. So how this fund works? We start with the federal government putting money in this fund in order to fund, to defray small-scale PPPs. So the goals of the fund are to select projects in the small-scale projects. So it's the cities or the states or consortiums, and we are going to screen for projects, select the projects in the sectors that are prioritary sectors. We are going to defray and offer the technical assistance to the municipality or to the city in order to help them to structure the PPP. And after we have a success of the bidding process to the tender process, that money that was used to structure the PPP, it goes back to the fund paid by the winner of the bidding process. So this makes it possible for the fund to structure a lot of projects, and the money comes back to the fund, and it makes this circle, and we can keep funding, keep it defraying with the PPP structuring projects. So Caixa works in the administration of this fund and also at the technical assistance of the structuring project. And we have an institutional assistance from PPI, which is the national government PPP unit. So what made Caixa enter this process of the PPP structuring? We have a very qualified staff. So we have more than 2,000 engineers and architects, and and a lot of lawyers in our team. We have a very close relationship with the public. So we have units of Caixa in all regions of Brazil and in all states. So we can have a very close relationship with the municipalities. Through the FAP, the fund, we can have a pipeline of successful projects so we can see what's ahead. We bring transparency to the process of structuring here in Brazil that needs to be more close to the public side, and we can have standardization of the project, and we try to standardize some sectors or some guidelines for each sector that we try to replicate to make it easier to see what's ahead. So to see what the pipelines, what direction the pipeline is going. So our ongoing projects, we have actually 75 projects in portfolio. Since we have our goal is to help small-scale PPP, so cities and states, we have 332 cities benefit from our structuring process, which goes to 26 million people and more than $6.5 billion of private investment in all these 5 sectors. So nowadays we have child education, and one project that was a pilot, and we will have in the next month a public calling for more projects. We have street lighting, social housing, sanitation, and wastewater, solid waste, and water supply, and 2 youth rehabilitation centers. So we have already finished 25 projects, and we have 50 going on. So the case study I would like to present today is of a project that was very particular, included in Brazil perspective, because it has the integration of three sides. It's the water supply, the wastewater treatment, and we have also the solid waste management system. So it's a small town in the center of Brazil. It's called São Simão, and it has 20,000 people. So it's not a big city. And our challenge there was to how we would make a project work with such a small population. So the term of the contract is 35 years, and we make the choice of adding these three scopes to make it viable. So we have water supply system, wastewater, and solid waste management system. So what was the situation when we started the project? Although we had 87% of people with water, we had in the city a big problem of recurrent water shortage. So the city is near to a dam, and even though they have a lot of water nearby, there was a big problem of water shortage, and it had some problems with through the years, and even with the involvement of the judiciary that was trying to solve the problem, because it was really impacting the population. So we had a poor functioning of the wastewater treatment facilities, and also we had improper solid waste disposal, as we can see in the picture. So this is a more common problem in Brazil, but it was also present there. But I think the most iconic thing for the project would be to solve the problem of the water shortage. So our challenge in this project, it was a very small city, so we had to bundle scopes to make a minimum project scale. So we would have economical financial sustainability, and it was a project that was attractive for the private parts. We didn't have a very qualified technical staff in the municipality, and I'm not sure if it's in the whole world it's like this, but here in Brazil we have the cities are not prepared, especially the small ones. They're not prepared to structure and to monitor a PPP. So we have the main role of Caixa is to help the municipality to go through this process, offering the technical help that is needed. So in this city particularly, it's very small, so they didn't have a qualified staff to monitor the project. We have a lot of local political instability. So through the whole structure of the whole structure process, we had, I think, 3 or 4 changes of mayor for different reasons. So at the end, I think at the last 6 or 8 months, we had 2 changes of mayor. So it was very unstable, and we could complete the process with no problems, with no effect of these changes in the project. We had an absence of water consumption measurement. So because of the history of the city, they didn't measure, neither they built the water to users, to the population. So the population didn't pay for the water, and it was difficult because as a small city, we had also a challenge of the population's ability to pay for this bill, this new bill that would be implemented. So through the phases that we went through, between the project structuring and the award, we took 24 months. And after that, in August 22, it was the beginning of the contract management phase. And it started with the water shortage problem. to try to solve it in the first few months, and the wastewater as well. And the only part that's going to start in 2025 is going to be the solid waste management system, because of the time needed to get the needed license for the process. So the results for us, we have an estimated capital expenditure of $10 million, an OPEX of $1.7 million per year, and a revenue estimated in $3.8 million per year. And an important thing to know here is that it was a project that implemented tariff billing for the population. So we don't have the public side, the city, putting any money in to help the project. The whole project is based on the billing of the population. And for Brazil, it's very important because it reduces the risk, the political risk of any changes in the government. So the results for us are the improvement of the water supply service provision. So the stoppage have reduced a lot. We don't have anymore neither the same amount of stoppage, neither the same time that they last. So if it happens, it's very quick. We have systematized the quality control of the water supply to the population. We implemented the measurement control and environmental education actions, aiming at the rational water consumption. So since the population before, they weren't built for the water, the water consumption was very high and it wasn't rational. So it's an environmental positive side of the project that we have now, a rational water consumption. We have the improvement of the wastewater treatment system, and we had through this year, since August 2002, the investments prior to the beginning of the solid waste management services. So with all that, I think we have a new picture of the municipality, and during the tender process, we have two proposals in this PPP, and for us it was very successful because it was a pilot that we wanted to try and see if it was viable, so we could replicate for other cities in Brazil, other small cities. After the project, we have some changes in the law in Brazil, so it's no longer possible to make this model work, and it should be done with a lot of cities together. We can't anymore do solid waste or wastewater projects just considering one city isolated. But before that change of the law, it was a pilot aiming at this in trying to make viable small-scale PPP projects for small cities here in Brazil. So just going back a little bit to the fund, after the finish of the tender process, the winning bidder, they paid the fund back. So this money was already spent in other projects that are being structured right now in that ongoing projects that I showed you at the beginning. And that's the main goal of Caixa here in this kind of project, that is to allow these small cities, especially, getting the technical assistance that they need to make PPP projects and having good projects to show to the market. And our current status is 100% bidded, 100% bidded projects. So we have been successful in all of the projects that Caixa entered and structured the PPP. Thank you, Natasha. We don't
You're
hear you.
muted, Natasha.
Sorry. So thank you, Samantha. I didn't mention I'm based in Brazil, and Caixa plays a significant role here in Brazil in this kind of PPPs, in small-scale PPPs, and going to the small cities in order to help them to structure the PPPs. So thank you. Let's move to Andres. Andres is from Saubermacher, and I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrongly. And please, Andres, introduce yourself, say it correctly, please, to help me. And please go on with your presentation.
Thanks for the introduction. Yes, you pronounced it very well. Saubermacher is the name of the company. My name is Andreas Oppelt. I am member of the executive board of Saubermacher, and I want to show you one example of a small-scale PPP in the area of solid waste management. So purely focused on that. I will share my presentation. I hope you can see it. So first, what is Saubermacher? Saubermacher is a waste management company who has this footprint. We are mainly family owned since more than 40 years in the market with experience in waste management. We have a little less employees than Caixa. We have 3,600 employees and 500 million of turnover roughly. And that is our footprint. So it's, let's say, Central East Europe, where we are focused on. And even though we have a PPP model, for example, in North Macedonia, I will talk today about the PPP model in Austria, especially for the case that in some regions, like North Macedonia, of course, the financing is also one of the main topics, but also in quite developed countries in the area of waste management, like Austria, there are a lot of PPP models, and I will shed light on the challenges there, besides, let's say, the classical investment topic. So you see now I switched from red to green, which means we also have a different brand for all of our PPP models. One of our recipes for success is, I think, that we give a main role, of course, also to the partner, to the city, or to the villages that join us. So you can see here Schilkerland Saubermacher, that is the example that I talk about. Schilkerland Saubermacher is a PPP model, one of our most recent PPP models, which is a combination of 3 villages which are close by. And I will talk about the challenges and the process and what we learned also again from this PPP model. So the timeline of the project was comparable to what we have seen in the previous talk. So we had more or less 2 years, from the opening of the RFP to the opening of the joint venture. In this RFP, it was very important for us that professionals like Caixa in Brazil, we also have these professionals in Austria, support the municipalities in creating a proper tender, allowing them, to participate in the know-how of people that did that quite some time, because that's for us the first challenge, especially in the small-scale PPPs, that there are not no experienced people in these smaller cities available. So these kind of partnerships in this RFP process are generally partners that support the city in their process is very important. So this, and it's not just about the legal process. What was also very important for us is that the technical competence was there in these consultants for the city, that that prepared the RFP, which contained a lot of innovation requirements for the future, because also my view is, if you start a PPP, you shouldn't, get a blueprint of something that's 10 years old, but require your private partner to really get out of the comfort zone and generate an innovative solution for you. So, for example, the digitalization competence, that was the first one of the PPP RFPs that included a lot of value in the digitalization competence. So this process, as you know, takes 1 or 2 years until all contracts and everything is prepared. And when we opened in 2019, it is of course always combined with a bit of a political discussion. PPPs. I'm not sure how this is in other regions in the world, but it's in Central Europe. There's always a critical discussion. Is what value does that bring? So within the opening ceremony, we also did a lot of news and work on the participation of the citizens, let them know what we are doing here, what is the advantage for them to support the cities in an area where they are also not so used to convey topics on waste management to their citizens. Interestingly, many of our PPPs start at a certain scale and then expand pretty soon. So until now, we have expanded, the services that we provide there. And that's also a learning for the small-scale PPPs, is that we like RFPs where the consultants tell the cities to make a rather broad RFP. Even though the first stage of the project might be smaller, but afterwards they can add new services more easily without going through this whole complex RFP process again. So when we look at the standard model that we have in such a PPP model, in the small-scale PPPs, is that we have one or more municipalities. So you see here we have 3 municipalities as a partner that have 50% shareholder of this PPP, and then Saubermacher as the other 50%. And one of our models that we are successful with in the operational part is that we have managing directors, which are part-time managing directors from both sides. And you see here 1 from us and even 2 from the city side, but that are not fully operational. And then we have 1 operations manager that let's say that is selected by these managing directors, who is really doing the day-to-day work, who doesn't have any hat on. So it's fully working for the organization. And this is very beneficial, that on the top level, let's say, certain things are discussed, but on the operational level towards also the employees, there is always 1 joint team and no difficult discussions. So the advantages that we generally convey, and I will also give examples how this works in this specific PPP, is that of course a PPP secures local jobs. That's something which is not new to you as a group, but to many of the municipalities, that's an important fact. And in this new company, we suddenly have 20 employees that are working locally in the city, which were before just a handful of people from the municipality with some contracted private partners, and that is very different here. In the small-scale PPPs, one of our success criteria is also that this PPP focuses on the municipal contract, but has the freedom to also participate in private business. So taking turnover also from not just from the citizens, but also from local companies that need waste management and support in this area. And so this PPP starts at a certain scale, but normally grows steadily in areas which are normally not the focus areas of a pure municipal waste management provider. Of course, and a big improvement is from the technology side and the reliability side, especially in the small-scale PPP. Sometimes you have just one truck of a certain type because it's so small. And if you would do it as a city alone, you would maybe need a second truck as a backup with a big partner with a partner in the background. Of course, this can be done properly by relying that Saubermacher has a truck on short notice at reserve to provide it to these companies. So this is some advantages. But then, of course, such PPPs do have also invoicing and billing processes included. So that's also something which we normally include into our PPP, that we take the risk of not paying customers or discussions on the invoices into the PPP and get this uncertainty away from the city. Investments are, of course, done only in the PPP, so that is reducing the overall investment weight for the municipalities. So when I talk about investment weight, what is the investment weight in such a small-scale PPP in waste management? Yes, of course, it's trucks. That is quite obvious, but you see it here in this green area. For example, the waste yard for the citizens. This was one of the challenges that these cities had, that they needed to rebuild one. For one city alone, the effort was high, but even for the 3 cities, the investment was significant. They didn't have a lot of experience on that. So that was part of the PPP contract, that we developed a small-scale concept and invested that within the company to build this waste yard, which is also the headquarters of the PPP company and also the logistic center for the trucks that are also operated there. So this modernization, I think, of infrastructure is obviously in all PPPs a general aspect, but in small PPPs, I think there's also the aspect that often these smaller cities not operating these things themselves before, but they have private partners on a contractor level. So from a municipal view, this is a remunicipalization actually, because something that they didn't own before, they just contracted, suddenly they own 50% now. I think that's something which we always convey in our discussions about PPPs, that it's not always a privatization, but very often it's something where the municipality gets, a stake in a certain service again. Of course, this additional turnover that's created from commercial customers, that's something which the city at the end also participates, and the city keeps control of an essential service like solid waste management. And you see these three cities like Preding, Frauenthal, and Deutschlandsberg, which are very Austrian names, sum up to 16,000 inhabitants, which is, I think, interesting that is comparable to what we've seen before. That's, from our view, a small-scale PPP. We have the experience that it doesn't make sense a lot below 10,000 inhabitants. It starts to make real sense above 15,000 inhabitants to have a certain mass to maneuver. So when I look at these PPP models, as you said, we have large-scale PPPs, and many of ours, we have 20 across Europe, are though small-scale PPPs. When I look into these different marks now in the landscape, there is a handful of bigger ones, but 15 of these PPPs are small-scale PPPs, where the investment is an important part, but the know-how and maybe just getting rid of a certain specific topic, service topic for the city, but not getting rid in a 20 years privatization contract, but still keeping an eye on what's happening there is, I think, the main aspect, in this model. Of course, depending on the regions, the challenges are a bit different from, let's say, compared from Austria to Croatia or North Macedonia. But at the end, the operational challenges, the challenges how this process of an RFP is created by the city and who is consulting that in a proper way, up to the start of the operation and the political discussion which is following these projects in all of the countries in a similar way is the same across those countries. So I was happy to share some of the thoughts and experience we had on this specific example of Schilcherland Saubermacher, which we launched just a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to take questions after our talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Andres, for sharing your experience. We have a lot of good questions here. We're going to share these questions in the end of the presentations, but they are very good. So thank you. I'm going to move to Alexandre Pesati. Alexandre is the head of the PPP unit in Recife. Recife, it's a city in Brazil. It's an important city in Brazil. It's a capital in the Northeast Brazil. So welcome, Alexandre. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, Natasha. I can't open my video here. I don't know what's happening with Zoom. Okay. First of all, thank you, Natasha, Ziad, and Nasser for this opportunity and all the colleagues in WAP for the opportunity to present our work here in Recife, Brazil. Natasha started presenting myself, but I'm graduated in law by the University of São Paulo. I'm currently finishing my postgraduate in project management, also in the University of São Paulo, and currently I'm the secretary of PPPs and concessions of Recife. I'm just start sharing my screen here. Everyone can see the presentation?
Yes, keep moving. Yes.
Okay. So just first of all, talking about our experience here in the City Hall. We are actually a very young PPP unit. We've started about 3.5 years ago, but today we already have about 12 projects, small-scale PPP projects. Not with signed contracts, but in the phase of structuration. Actually, I don't know which the parameter we are using to classify a PPP as a small-scale PPP, but considering the capex of our projects, I'm classifying all of them as small-scale PPPs. Between those 12 projects I mentioned, we have 3 main social infrastructure projects. One of them is in education, social housing, and healthcare. Okay, and this healthcare PPP that we're going to talk about today. In fact, one of them, our social housing PPP, is we are designing it in partnership with Caixa, with Samantha. That program that Samantha was mentioning in her presentation. Okay, so let's get started. Well, about our stakeholders. This project is being made by the government here in our PPP unit in Recife City Hall, in partnership with IFC from the World Bank, and also in partnership with our National Bank of Development. About the city, Recife, as Natasha mentioned, is the capital of the state of Pernambuco. We have a population about 1.6 million people, and we live in a metropolitan area of a population of 3.8 million people. Okay, we have a municipal revenue of about 8.2 billion Brazilian reais. That's our currency here, which is equivalent to 1.65 billion US dollars. Although we have like a good GDP compared to other cities in Brazil, we do not have here in the state of Pernambuco a lot of good social indicators. We have a HID here in Recife of 0.7, Gini of 0.68, and in about numbers of poverty, we have like 51% of Pernambuco's population living in poverty and 18.5% of Pernambuco's population in extreme poverty. Those are the numbers we have to tackle. This is our challenge. This is the scenario we want to change, and education and healthcare are the baseline for that change. Okay. Some information about our public health, okay, system. We have today about 132 family health units here in Recife, which are capable of an assistant capacity of 64% of Recife's population, which is low, okay? This is the number specifically we're going to tackle in our PPP. We intend with our PPP to provide quality infrastructure to the professionals that work in the units, and also to the users, to the citizens that use those services. And with our PPP rolling, we intend to allow the health department to focus in which is really important, which are the policies of healthcare in the municipality. In the end of our capex moment in the project, we hope to achieve 75% of coverage in attendance to the population. And our PPP, aligned with our other actions for the health department, we hope to achieve 100% of coverage in our city to basic healthcare. And what are we considering here as primary or basic care? Well, that is the service that's going to be provided by those family health units. Well, here in Brazil, we have a unique health system. It's a system which is free and intends to be universal. We have a lot of problems in the infrastructure area that do not allow to have a really universalized system. In this unique and centralized health system, at the local level, what's being done? We have here in the city's territory a division in sanitary districts. Those sanitary districts have some family health units that provide services of basic care to that population. This is the entrance to our public health system, okay? So they're not units that have complex procedures. They do not require complex and expensive equipments to realize the work. There are basic buildings where you have to house the doctors, nurses, and dentists. So people they can make appointments if they have some illness, and also the workers from the city hall that work there also make an active prospection with the families that live nearby the unit, so they won't get ill diseases that could be spreading along this district, this sanitary district. Well, what I can see is just that we have a prevention. We're providing a service of prevention to new diseases that could be development to worse diseases. We are in fact with this PPP helping not to have more expensive procedures on those more complex levels of the healthcare system. Okay, let's move on. What's the current state of these infrastructures? The current infrastructure does not support the numbers of teams required to meet the population's projection in the coming years. And in addition, there is room to optimize and modernize the unit using resources such as water reuse or renewable energy. About the equipment and technology, there is a lack of standardization of manufacture and model that makes maintenance more expensive and increase the time to solve problems. The equipment is in poor state of conservation, lack of maintenance and calibration, insufficient in quantity of certain equipments. Okay, those are the problems we're going to tackle with this PPP. Our PPP is it's a mixture of brownfield and greenfield units. Okay, we're going to our scope englobes 41 PPP units. That 22 are existing units and 19 are going to be built from the scratch. Our investments contemplates demolition, land adaptation, civil works and design, furniture and clinical equipment, photovoltaic power, information technology, and the recapex, the reinvestments during the PPP. About our services there's going to be provided. We're talking about a DBFOM project here. In other words, there is the investment part of the contract and the services that are going to be provided. The clinical services are not included in our PPP. So all the doctors, the operation of the sterilization equipments, all the meds and logistics to the pharmacy and things transportation are going to be provided by the government, by the city hall. And also the line to build this unit is going to be provided by the city hall. So our PPP is going to englobe the non-clinical services, everything we need to operate these units. So the utilities management, water and power supply, laundry and clothing, help desk, building and conservation of the building, front desk services, medical equipment, maintenance, like the sterilization equipments, the dentist equipments, insurances and warranties, information technology, cleaning, waste, gardening, and fumigation, and surveillance. Okay. Our contract is a concession term of 25 years. As I said, it's a DBFOM project. Our international bidding is going to be done by the lowest payment to be done by the government monthly. As I said, the public and expropriation lands is assigned by the government. The property of the equipments and the buildings is going to be transferred to the government in the end of the PPP. The engineering interventions for remodeling the existing units and building from the scratch those new ones is going to be done in up to 45 months. Some financial aspects. The maximum consideration of the government payment is going to be 6 million Brazilian reais to a month. Our capex is estimated in 320 million, and our average annual opex is going to be about 25 million. We have a result of a total contract value of 1.6 billion Brazilian reais. As you can see, our capex is divided, is concentrated in the first 4 years of operation. In the first 4 years of operation, where we have the buildings that are going to be constructed, and after that we have the recapex through the years. The civil work and the furniture and clinical equipment are the most relevant aspects of our capex. Otherwise, our opex, it's also in the first 4 years there's a ramp up that occurs after the delivery of the units by the private partner. And one of our most relevant costs in the OPEX are surveillance and cleanliness and conservation. About our social indicators and social and environmental guidelines. As we are making a project with the World Bank and IFC, our private partner has to follow some of the performance standards that on sustainability that are offered by the IFC. So everything related to assessment and management of social and environmental risks and impacts, employment and work conditions, resource efficiency and pollution prevention, community health and safety, and land acquisition and involuntary resettlements costs. They all have to be observed by our partner during the contract. About our indicators, about our KPIs, to measure if our partner is making a good job during the contract, we have a system that impacts his performance directly in his income, in the government payment. If he doesn't perform well, he's going to receive less money monthly. We have KPIs divided by some sectors. We have indicators that are going to check availability of some services, if they're being provided or not, and we have the quality factor to see if these indicators are being done correctly as we requested in the contract. About our bidding, we are soliciting some conditions to our bidders. So we divided by investments, where we are asking for enterprise, a partner that has the experience for has had the experience has made about 50% of our project capex estimated. And about our services, we're asking for a partner that had the experience to make all the facilities, services like building maintenance, cleaning, concierge, and non-existence services in our area of about 25% of our expected area in the project.
Alexandre,
Okay.
Alexandre, can we go to the final considerations
I'm finishing here. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not going to profound this to detail this point, but we have a system of public guarantees. So we take some security, legal security and payment security in our private partner. Currently, we are in an advanced phase of the project. We are already passed by our public hearing, and we are now sending our project to our Court of Accounts, and we're hoping probably in October to be open to public meeting. Okay, that's it, people. Thank you for your time. Sorry, Samantha. I think I passed your time a little.
Thank you, Alexandre. Thank you for your presentation. Let's go to the questions. I have a lot of questions here from the chat, and I expect we can cover all of them. And please feel free, whoever wants to send another question, I'm going to put it here and expect the time will allow us to answer it. So, Samantha, I have several questions for you. I saw that you answered that in the chat, but it would be super nice for you to answer it here too, so we can discuss, make this roundtable. Okay. So first, Ziad sent this message, this question, and what was the rationale for changing the law to make it obligatory to bundle municipalities? Because this is an issue, right? How do you manage whenever you have changes of not even mayors in a political perspective, but also regulatory agencies? When we're talking about municipalities, we're talking about the local regulatory agencies, and they lack many times of technical, high-level technical knowledge. So how do you deal with that?
Thank you, Natasha. Well, talking about the law and how we deal with that, it has been working very well for the solid waste sector. So we have a lot of projects of solid waste with bundled cities. But with wastewater and water supply, it's not been it's not been working the same as solid waste. So during the time that the law was being discussed, there was a lot of factors considered during the change of the law. But I think the main objective, the main goal of the change was to try to make a guideline for all the cities in Brazil, because we have a very big country. So it's very difficult to have one size fits all solution. So it was an attempt of solving the problem of project viability and trying to bundle the cities together. We can solve it, and we can make we can provide the solution for the bundled cities. And talking about the agents that support the projects, we think that thinking about the PPP in general in Brazil, we have been developing all stakeholders together. So we have better projects than 5 years ago. We have better agents than 5 years ago. We have better knowledge at the municipalities than 5 years ago. So I think it's a challenge of all stakeholders developing together to provide a better project to the people.
Does Caixa Econômica has any kind of program related to capacity building of people in the municipalities?
Yes, at the moment, I think in the next days, maybe we are going to announce a program of capacity of education for for people who work at the municipalities. We are going to make two courses, one for social housing and another one for education, in order to try and help the teams, the city teams, to being to getting the knowledge necessary to make the projects. So we have, besides that, that is a smaller program. It's a start of a program. We have also a free course of Caixa at a national platform that's called ENAP. And we have a free PPP course there available for everyone in Brazil or everyone in any part of the world, but it's in Portuguese. So these city teams can learn by themselves about PPP. So it's a course prepared by Caixa that is available in this platform.
Okay, so I'm going to move back to you with other questions. I'm going to ask Andreas about it's Jyoti's question. So did one municipality take the lead as the first step in defining the PPP arrangements, or was it already institutionalized as a program?
Yes, thanks for that question. It was actually the biggest municipality of in this region who took the first step in thinking about entering a PPP model, and they were then talking to the other municipalities surrounding them. Actually, there were 5 of them being interested, and then in the final process of really getting approval in their city councils and preparing the RFP, just 3 of them were really ending up. But one was taking the lead, and I think that's also very important. Either there is a previous structure, but even then you need one municipality really pushing that thing forward through this jungle of complexity and political resistance.
And Andres, how do you guarantee that one municipality, one city will not pull out from the contract? Because in Brazil we have a lot of discussions on this regard. So we have more than 5,000 municipalities here in Brazil. So it's a huge problem. Let's say a huge. It's a complex problem. But and one of the things that we are always discussing is how we do that as a consortium. And how do we guarantee that once you get in the consortium, you're not pulling back? So how do you see that?
Yes, so each of the municipality holds is shares in the joint venture itself. And on top of that, they have a syndicate contract, which is regulating the decision-making process and what's happening, if one wants to exit among themselves. For example, if we have a general assembly, there's also their internal procedure that they do a pre-alignment beforehand, to speak with one voice, as one municipal voice, with us, and this works quite well. So I'm not sure about the detailed content of this syndicate contract, but this is happening in all of the PPPs where we have more than one municipality. And it's the same here, that we have so many little municipalities, that they cannot really move and enter. So getting those to work together in such a joint venture is sometimes more easy than doing it just themselves alone, because that would be, of course, another option.
Thank you. So moving to Alexandre, we have a question from Dr. Naresh. So how are you mitigating technology risk in your concession agreement? Technology is we're always improving. So how do you mitigate this risk? Where is it allocated in your risk analysis? It's muted.
Okay, couldn't open my microphone. So during the contract, when if the public partner requests actualization in technological features provided by the private partner, the private partner has to implement that and can request after that economic and financial rebalancing of the contract. Okay.
Okay, so it's you have to change the contract somehow. You have to ask and change the contract if it's okay.
You have to you can change, like you probably have to you're going to have the private partner is going to have new costs, and we're going to rebalance the contract so that our public payment is going to be a little higher.
Did you have this issue already or not yet?
No, not yet. No, this is a contract that we're going to sign in the second semester. We haven't been in this discussion yet. Okay.
Good. So I'm moving back to Samantha. So Samantha, question from David. How did Caixa manage the changes in government with new mayors? So we have the mandates here are 4 years. So how do you manage that?
So
And
we have
long term, right? So
yes, we have two kinds of changes. The one that are programmed by the electoral schedule, and the other ones that are within this schedule because of other reasons. So
true,
we have
and stuff like this, and that is what you're talking about.
What we have a lot of stakeholders in the project. So we have here we call it public ministry. I try to find the translation. I think it's prosecution office. So they participate in the project, and we like to inform them and maintain them informed about the project during the whole structuring process, so they know what's being done, and they can contribute if they want to, and it's very transparent for them. So they end up being in the side of the project. So even if the mayor changes or something changes, the prosecution office, they try to maintain the process going. So that's one side. The other side is that Caixa has units throughout Brazil. So we have teams that are very close to the executive level. So if a mayor changes, we can approach the new mayor very quickly to present the project and to try and maintain the structuring process as it was going before. And the third important thing is that we have the federal government support through the SPPI, which is the PPP unit in the federal government, and they have a very important role in talking to the mayors and having this close relationship with all the municipalities, so they can support the project when we have some issue or something that is not being solved within the structuring process. So we try to cover the problem through all the sides.
So this is the importance. I was in PPI in Brazil. I worked there. So one of the main things of qualifying a project in this national program of PPI is that the small municipality might have the assistance of the it's not only the assistance but the power of the national government in order to enforce in case of this political instabilities, right? But then on this regard, what is one thing that you saw that might be improved in this process, or that a lesson that was learned? Because the political thing is something that happens all around the world. Is there anything that you saw that might be improved?
I think two lessons that we learned were that one of the transparency is very important for the process. So being transparent with all the stakeholders really gets the process going. So it's the projects that we have very close relationships with all these stakeholders, as the city, the prosecution office, and everyone. And we were very transparent about the process. We're very good to get to the end. And the other one, that we have these stakeholders engaged in making the project go on. So when we see that the stakeholders are taking part actively in the process, the project tends to work better. The structuring process tends to work better. So I think it's the transparency and the engagement of the stakeholders.
Alexandre, please feel free.
No, I just like to agree with everything Samantha said. We also are having this question, this point here in our healthcare PPPs, because we have all this worry in the population and the public employees about the privatization of the healthcare system in Brazil, etc. Although we do not have included the clinical services in our PPP. So during the structuration of the project, we are engaging with the employees associations, with everyone that is now against our project, to explain how everything is going to go and how everything is going to get better to them through better working conditions and better public services that are going to be provided. We're going through this here now.
If we have time, in the end, we have a lot of questions here that I would like to listen to you about communication. How important is the communication to the population on this regards, and how do you see that? So how do you communicate with the communities, with the citizens? But moving forward, Andres, lessons learned from from the RFPs, more broader to build in flexibility, even with bundling. Do you see this in your countries? Actually, it's a general, but I would like to address this to Andres. Do you see this in your countries for small scale PPPs? So how does this request for proposals?
Yes, I think it's very much dependent on how good the consultants are, and the relationship of the consultants and the trust with the consultants and the municipality. Because if you understand the model and have and have studied some of the models, it is very obvious that the broader the RFP is, from a service point, the better, because you do not have to increase the services, but you can. And that is where we see very well-educated municipalities, that understand that and that provide such RFPs. And sometimes we see a political situation where there's still a lot of critics, within the internal discussion, and then they launch a very small, narrowed RFP, which always later on, after a couple of years, comes back to them, and they feel pity about that. So the more you bundle, of course, the more synergies you can get, the more flexibility you have. Here, at least in Europe, we have a lot of troubles with labor. So in different municipal services, municipalities do not find proper labor. So that they have a flexible model to put things into the PPP at a later stage if they run into such a problem.
Thank you, Andres. There is one thing that I would like to point. Professor Pedro Neves, I listened to him in the past UNES event, and he was saying about changing the perspective in looking at these contracts, and it has to do with this question as services, as the quality of the services and not properly implementing the contract. Of course, implementing the contract is very important, but looking at the quality of the services and how the citizens are looking at it are satisfied with the service may be the most important thing for the contract, and it's important for instance for accountability and for fiscalization and stuff like this. So how do you see that? How do you see this? How in your contract, is there anything new that you put on this regard on satisfaction of the user of the service?
You ask me? Yes. So I think what we aim for is that each of these PPP models is a success through a long period of time, which means changes in the political situation, for example, that you just discussed before. And the major aspect of that is that the citizens realize that it's better than it has been before. And you have to communicate that a lot, because, they are maybe subject to more strict payment procedures suddenly, which is not something that all of them like. But if they understand that the service is better and it's good for everybody, and this is a lot of communication that we do. We always include a lot of additional projects that maybe haven't been in the contract, which are giving a good communication topics with a lot of sustainability aspects, which haven't been described in all details. And we could always say, look, it's not in the contract, so we don't do it. But we as a partner always push these things proactively, because they pay off in the long term a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for our answer. There is one question from Syed, Mr. Syed, to Alexandre. How will you access the facility condition at the end of the concession period? Do you consider any expected life of assessment system at the end of the concession period at handover to public sector? So Alexandre, could you answer this? And it got my attention, Andres, that you said that you have it's 50% owned by the public sector in your case. But in the end, is it also 50% of the infrastructure? Because here in Brazil, 100% is going to be back to the public sector. And
100% of the buildings are going to be transferred to the public sector. But I think the question is about specifically about
the facility conditions at the end of the
the facility conditions. At the end of the PPP, it's going to be checked those the conditions, and we do consider any expect life of the assets. When we went through the structuring of our financial modeling here of the project, we consider the changes that are going to be that will be made by the private partner in all the equipments in the units. So our contract years were established by consider those changes in the equipments, and as well as the conditions of the buildings. Okay.
So there is one question here from Diala. Thank you, Alexandre. And it's a very nice question, because it makes us think about the difference about a big PPP project and a small-scale PPP project. So how different was the process compared to bigger PPP projects with respect to transaction costs lower and the length of the tendering process of complexity? Samantha, could you please start?
Yes, I'm going to make a comment about our own projects. So we have solid waste and social housing and other projects that are longer to structure and cost more. The cost of the structuring is higher. And we have public lighting, which is a smaller PPP that has a smaller capital expenditure, and it's quicker to structure. So we have been weighting these advantages and disadvantages of the bigger and the quicker and longest process, because if we have a higher cost to structure a PPP as public lighting in Brazil, it has a more relevant, it's a relevant cost in the project. So we are trying to understand how we can make it more standardized, as Ziad asked here before, and how to make it more standard for the process to be cheaper and doesn't have, and that it can't have a very relevant cost in the PPP process in general. So for smaller projects, as for us, public lighting, we are trying to make it more standard, the structuring process, to make it more adequate to the size of the PPP. For bigger process as solid waste and social housing and other that are longer and the capital expenditure is bigger, we can have a more robust process. But we are just in the moment of having this conversation here in Caixa to see how we can make it better for these smaller projects.
Andres, can you please address it too? How do you see the differences on the structuring these two kinds of PPPs?
Yeah, so we just, as I said, we just launched a new PPP in North Macedonia, which is, I'm not sure where the border of big and small is, but this is 100,000 inhabitants. So from our perspective, that's going into, let's say, mid-size to a bit bigger. And actually, the effort of the whole tender process is almost the same. Maybe it's a bit more complicated, but for us, the only difference is that the political complexity of the other side increases exponentially with the size of the PPP and the city, let's say. So in let's say in the smaller cities, you have normally 2-3 people that are the decision makers, the influencers within the municipal government. In a city with 400,000-500,000 inhabitants, or you have complex decision structure which makes the whole negotiation, let's say, a lot more difficult. And we see that the process before an RFP is launched is a lot more effort for the consultants to get these people all in line, understanding what they want. The actual RFP then is quite similar.
Alexandre, can you go on this question?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can you go on this question about how do you see the differences in structuring the large-scale PPPs and the small-scale PPPs on this regard?
Okay, actually, I've been working the past 5 years with small-scale PPPs. I only on the local level. I've never worked on a PPP with a larger capex involved. But I think nowadays a challenge that we are having with the small scale PPPs is like attracting the confidence and the attention of those players that are traditionally investing in the bigger PPP projects. We are having this challenge here in Brazil. Okay.
Okay. So I think we have a lot of other questions, but we are running out of time. We have extra 4 minutes, and I'm going to pass the word to Ziad to make the final compliments. You're muted, Ziad.
You're muted.
Thank you very much, Natasha. I really appreciate it. Great panel today. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Alexandre, for sharing with us your experiences. There'll be, I'm sure, many more questions. And everybody here that is listening, please feel free to reach out to any one of our panelists with any questions that you have on a case-by-case basis. And we continue with our program. Our next session is going to take place next week. Usually we have these sessions 2 weeks apart, but because we canceled the session for a Good Friday last week, we're holding it today. So the next session is on Friday, April April, whatever it will be, next Friday anyway, I forget. And then the last session on the small-scale PPP case studies will be on April 26th. So please do join us. Feel free to reach out to us at WAP. You can go to wap.org and you can join us there to become members. Also, many thanks to UNECE for being our partners in this program. Next week, actually, most of the cases that will be presented will be UNECE collected cases. So we thank you again very much, everybody. Thank you, panelists, Natasha, again, and we'll see you next week.